Hi everybody, Lisa here. I am going to make today a low carb paleo granola. It is by Wholesome Yum, and I'm going to add just an extra touch of my own ingredient in there. I've made this video one time before and tried to upload it and deleted it, so we're hoping for a better outcome this time. So I have here the ingredients that we're going to be using today. We're going to be using some pecans, almonds, hazelnuts, sunflower seeds, pepitas, which are also known as pumpkin seeds, some unsweetened shredded coconut, a 1/4 cup of butter, some vanilla, 1 egg white, golden flaxseed meal, and some Lakanto sweetener. That would be all of the ingredients that we're going to need for today's recipe, and I'm going to portion things out and we'll get started. Okay, so we're ready to get started, and I'm using a food processor. If you don't have one, not sure how well it would work in maybe like a NutriBullet. I think it might be a little bit too finely chopped if you used something like that. Maybe you could do a blender, but really you need to have a food processor for this recipe. So the first ingredient we're going to add in is we're going to do a cup of almonds. And the recipe does call for adding in a cup of hazelnuts right now, but I couldn't find whole hazelnuts. I could only find chopped hazelnuts. So I really don't want to put them in just yet because I don't want them too finely ground up. So I'm going to start with this, and we're basically going to pulse these until they're crushed up quite a bit. Okay, and now if you want to see where I'm at with this, I'm about a good chopped consistency. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my hazelnuts in now. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pulse it a few more times. You want to make sure that you do not over pulse the nuts because you don't want everything to be ground down to a mealy consistency. You want to make sure that you have plenty of good sized pieces in there. So the next nut that you're going to add in is a cup of pecans. And the reason we're adding these in at this point is both hazelnuts and almonds are a very hard nut, so they don't take as much to break down. So we'll go ahead and we'll add in our cup of pecans. The nuts that I'm using are salted. If you choose to use unsalted nuts, you will need to go ahead and add a little bit of salt in at some point in the recipe because otherwise it's not going to have a good flavor to it. So I'm going to go ahead and pulse this a little bit. Okay, so far this is what we're looking like. Okay, and we're going to continue adding in nuts to the recipe at this point. Next thing we're going to add in is going to be our 1/3 cup of pumpkin seeds. Okay, and we're going to add in a 1/3 cup of sunflower kernels. And at this stage, we're also going to add in our sweetener. Again, I'm using the Lakanto monk fruit sweetener. You can use whatever sweetener you like. This is 6 tablespoons. Okay, after that, we're going to add in our flaxseed meal. I used Bob's Red Mill Golden Flaxseed Meal. This is a 1/2 cup. And let me see what else we have to add in at this point. Also, I'm adding this. This is not in the recipe from Wholesome Yum, but I'm adding in a 1/3 cup of unsweetened organic coconut. And you can leave that out if you don't like coconut. And we're not going to pulse this for very long. Again, we want to make sure that we're getting it all mixed, but we don't want to chop down our nuts too much further. Okay, so this is where we're at. I'm going to show you. There's plenty of good sized pieces. What you're seeing is a lot of that flaxseed meal now. So what I do here is I remove my blade because you need to be able to mix, and you certainly can't do that with that in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. And our next part is we're going to take one egg white, a large egg white, and we're going to add this in. Kind of go around to try to, as best you can, get it among all of it. And I want to make sure I get all of that egg white. This is one of our main sources of, I don't know, liquid or, wet components in this ingredient. So I'm just going to kind of gently move that around. And you want to be going, when you're mixing this recipe, from the bottom up, because otherwise you're going to miss a lot of it in combining all of the ingredients. Okay, and I'm just giving this a quick mix. And now the next thing we're going to add into here, this is a 1/4 cup of butter melted and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm going to move this around. This is the rest of our liquids. And you want to try to spread it around. And we're going to spend some time mixing. Last time I made this recipe, I thought, oh, it'll go fast, but it actually takes a few minutes to really get it mixed well. And it's super important, again, that you're mixing from the bottom up. You want to go ahead and really try to incorporate all those ingredients together, because you want to make sure that everything is, I don't want to say wet because it definitely will not be wet, but at least has a little bit of dampness to it. I've found that doing it with the spatula was the easiest for me. Now, they did it actually in the food processor and went ahead and pulsed it together to mix it, but I like my granola a little bit coarser, so I really, again, didn't want to have it ground down too finely. But you can do whatever is easiest for you or however you like it. Because I'm using this recipe more, I'm finding, as a cereal. I'm really enjoying it with almond milk. And I also noticed that when I made the recipe the first time, after baking it, my daughter said, I think we could probably cut these actually into granola bars, and really you could. So we're getting close to having everything mixed really well. And I'll get you inside the bowl here a little bit to kind of see. You can see that everything is just kind of a little moist. I mean, it is not wet by any stretch of the imagination, but it's really got to be mixed well. Take your time. There's no reason to, rush through it, because if it is not mixed, you're going to find big areas of your granola that really don't stick together. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second and get set up to put it into our baking pan. Okay, so we're back. I am ready to go ahead and put my granola into the baking pan. I've gone ahead and I have lined my baking tray with a piece of parchment paper. You absolutely have to do this step or you're going to have problems with it later. So all you have to do is go ahead and put your granola onto the baking sheet. And this recipe made a ton more granola than I expected it to the first time, and so I was surprised at the quantity before, but this is exactly what I was expecting now. So then you want to go ahead and you want to spread it out, push it down to about 1/3 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch in thickness, all the way around your pan. And also to let you know, we've gone ahead and preheated our oven to 325. I'm almost done getting this spread out across the whole sheet. I suppose you could also use, if you have a silicone baking mat. I do have one, but not quite big enough to fit this entire tray. And the parchment paper seemed to work really well last time, so I'm sticking with what I know works. So once it's all in there, we are gonna put this in our oven, again at 325 for about 15 to 18 minutes until you see the edges start to brown on it. You're not looking for a brown color over the top of it, just until you see this start to brown. I think for my oven, it runs a little bit hot, so right about the 15, 16 minute mark was enough for me. So I'm gonna put this in the oven. And I will come back to you after we are baked. Okay, see you soon. Okay, so we are coming out of the oven just a few minutes early because my oven runs a little warm. And you'll see, hopefully my husband can zoom in here, the edges are just starting to brown. Okay, so what we want to do is we're gonna go ahead and we are gonna let this granola sit here for about a good 30 to 40 minutes to go ahead and cool completely. Then we're gonna break it up into pieces. We're gonna enjoy it. So I'll come back after I break it up. Okay guys, so we're back and the granola has cooled. I've gone ahead and I've broken it up and you can see this is a lot of granola it makes. I measured it out last time and it's about 25 quarter of a cup servings. And so I'm gonna give you the stats on each serving. The calories are 135 calories. Fat is 9.9 grams. Carbs are 5.8 grams, but you have 2.6 grams of dietary fiber in there, so it gives you a net of 3.2 grams of carbs, and your protein is 3.2 grams of carbs. Again, that's for a quarter cup serving, and it's delicious. I love it. Thanks, guys. Hope you like the recipe.